Team USA is training hard and ready for the Olympic Games. And so is Jacob.
Whoa, I've got my Lucky shirt and Xfinity Flex.
Oh yeah, Jacob's family got Xfinity Internet with the best Wi-Fi for their home and a Flex 4K streaming box free, plus Peacock Premium included. So Jacob is ready for anything.
Go Team USA!
With medal ceremonies, highlights, interviews, and more, plus all his favorite streaming apps in one place.
Can your internet do that?
Restrictions apply. Not available in all areas. Peacock subscription required.
Xfinity, proud partner of Team USA.
New hot and iced Sunrise Batch Coffee from Dunkin'. A bright and balanced, full-bodied blend brewed so you can get summering from sunrise to sunset. And even after that, because that's when you can show off those string lights you hung in the backyard. Or rehung. Enjoy a medium, hotter iced Sunrise Batch Coffee for $2. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.
All right, coming up a little bit later, we're going to catch up with Lee Ellis, talk some NBA. We have Zach McMath for some RSL, Cam Mellor for some college football, and Brian Dunseth will finish things off at 5 o'clock. But let's bring in our friend Amy now. Amy Donaldson on loan from KSL, back on the drive on a Monday. Amy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. Good to be back after some time off. And, one of the fun things that I enjoy about talking with you is we can pretty much go in any direction. So I kind of wanted to start off with some Olympics. And look, I know you consume the games like I do, and I know there's an odd undercurrent that we'll get to. But what are some of your favorite feel-good stories so far from the games?
Oh, my gosh, there's so many.
Yep.
So I'll start with Sarah Robles because I got to cover her in Rio. She's a weightlifter. She just became the first American woman to win 2 weightlifting. She won her second weightlifting Olympic medal. So she won the bronze. She's also the cousin of, her cousin is Beatles, Zane Beatles.
Good knowledge.
Yeah, but she's a wonderful person. She talks a lot about being a chunky kid and being teased and how sport gave her the opportunity to find herself and find some confidence. And I just love her. She's a wonderful person and has been through a lot. I wrote a story on her in Rio. I'm looking forward to reading something, but I'm having trouble finding anything in depth on the women's weightlifting. But yeah, I saw she won her bronze, and then I had to go back and watch it because I didn't actually even know it was on. So, but that was cool. The high jump shared gold medal. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a great moment.
Yeah, that was, and I love that it sparked this debate about, is it winning if you have to share the medal, and I really think people should I suggest you go back and look at the histories of these two men. It's a miracle that one of them is there competing in the Olympic Games. They've both had a ton of physical ailments to overcome, and the fact that they were there and could share the gold medal moment, I thought it was pretty awesome that they were willing to do it. So I love that. And then I guess also just a smidge of karma, the fact that Novak Djokovic had a little meltdown after criticizing Simone Biles and pulled out of the games. I was like, see, these guys aren't so tough.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's where I want to go next. I listened to it was on NPR, and if you just go to their website, it's they have a little write-up on it as well, and it's about Simone Biles, it's about Naomi Osaka, and how they're changing the way people view mental health. And I was off last week, so I didn't get to jump into this fire, and there's so many hot takes left and right, and that human malignancy, Clay Travis, like, my gosh, man, some of the reaction, Amy, was just not surprising, but really disappointing. What do you make of this entire thing topically, whether it's Simone Biles or Naomi Osaka, having the foresight to do what's best for themselves?
I think that people are not used to women, and especially not women of color, doing that. And so they've been available for them in any way they want. And I think the best headline was actually in The Onion, which is satire. And it said, a bunch of conservative white men are upset that Simone Biles deprived them of the opportunity to criticize her. And that's what they do. They criticize these women no matter what they do. We've seen it with Serena. We've seen it with Naomi Osaka. And you've seen it with Simone Biles, who's literally the best gymnast there's ever been, that the United States has ever produced. And so if you can't not criticize the very best at the sport, I don't know. And it's just so ticky-tacky and ridiculous. But I didn't care why she did it. She said she wasn't in sync. She couldn't do it. She then put on her Instagram a pretty gut-wrenching and I thought informative piece. And I noticed a lot of coaches sharing it because I'm friends with lots of the high school coaches I covered. Basically she explained what the twisties are and why if you have a mind that is out of sync with your with your physical abilities, it can get you killed in gymnastics. And she couldn't risk it. And so I just thought, we don't know what goes into, none of us have played at this level. None of us even have any clue what this life is like that these athletes are living. And, one of the moments I didn't mention because it's everybody in Utah's favorite moment, Michaela Skinner, this is a woman who had COVID and was so tired she thought her career was over then, and then she thinks she's done and going to go home and she's competing. She wins a silver medal in her favorite and best event. But I just think we don't know the demands. We think we do. We ride, emotionally with them a little bit from where we sit. But I thought it was stunning, the hyperbole that accompanied most of this criticism. And then, and literally nothing, crickets, when, one of the best in men's tennis does this and literally pulled out of the medal match, and so his mixed doubles partner doesn't even get to compete for a bronze medal, for an Olympic medal. So I don't know if this doesn't illustrate to you that there's a double standard in sports. I don't know what to tell you.
Why the obsession with needing to know exactly what's going on or wanting to jump in with the whole like, hey, if LeBron sat in the second half or Tom Brady would never sit as like. Why can't we all just say, hey, good for you. Do whatever is best for you. Like screw your judgment, man. Like, why can't we just accept other people's situation for whatever it is and trust them to make the best decision for themselves?
Because we don't see athletes as human beings. We see them as commodities. They're our entertainment. And how dare you deprive me of this opportunity to cheer for my country? It's even if they're not a fan of you, they will become a fan of you in that moment. I think honestly, it's just also because we are not serious about destigmatizing and actually dealing with mental health. We have had some athletes come out and be pretty open and pretty honest about their experiences with mental health issues, and we've praised them, but God forbid they need to sit a critical game or that it's the reason. I mean, look, they question whether or not Donovan was actually as hurt, if his ankle was really hurt, So why wouldn't they question, you have mental issues? Nope. A lot of people don't understand mental health issues. They don't understand the mental health aspect of professional sports or of really any high stress profession. And I think the other thing is a lot of us can't understand is what it is like to be. One of the reasons Simone Biles, went for another Olympic Games was to hold USA Gymnastics accountable for their absolutely abysmal and frankly criminal way that they handled the Larry Nassar situation. Hundreds of women were sexually assaulted by a man they protected, including Simone Biles. And so when people started tweeting at me or asking questions about, what if this was LeBron or what if this was Tom Brady? My question is, what do you think would happen if they had been sexually assaulted and the NFL or the NBA had protected their abuser and made them part of the organization? I mean, this is just, they have done a horrific job of doing what's best for these women at every turn. And Simone has fought for all these other women, not just herself. And we have no idea what that's like. And I read a piece by a former Tribune writer who's now at another paper, and she wrote about how being a victim of sexual assault never goes away. It sort of just permeates then the rest of your life, everything you do and write and see and experience. And I just thought of Simone Biles. I thought, here she is trying to hold this organization that failed so many women and girls, and we're going to worry about whether or not she's going to entertain us or win a medal for our country, and maybe China might win more medals than us now because Simone Biles can't do what we need her to do. I don't understand the thinking. I can't explain it to you because I think it's just absolutely the most ridiculous and selfish and frankly sexist and stupid.
You know, the other thing that comes to mind, Amy, is like Jennifer Capriati, or, you know, and we could have like this is a podcast discussion, because a guy like Chris Washburn or Roy Tarpley or Richard Dumas, and we could keep going down the list of great athletes who, you know, came up in a time where the stigma around mental health was such that if you spoke out, you were damaged goods. And sometimes I feel like it's still there in certain circles for sure. But imagine all the pain, imagine all the chaos that could have been avoided if some of these people who had great athletic skill were given the space and the grace to say, I'm not okay, I need to figure this out. And maybe careers could have been extended. And I mean, some of these guys, they got loose with addiction, and some of them are dead. Roy Tarpley passed away. Like they came up in a time where you should shut up and dribble. And if you have an issue off the floor, figure it out and come back to practice on time tomorrow, you know?
Frankly, I think that's the case in most leagues today. You know, we saw in the Pac-12 where a college quarterback ended his own life over mental health issues.
Right.
It's still not safe. It's still not where it needs to be. We pay a lot of lip service to it, and once in a while, a high-profile person gets the space they need. I don't think most of us understand. I just have a little taste of it from talking to some of these athletes, how difficult it's been for them to try to compete during COVID. I mean, think about trying to work during COVID. I know how much anxiety I have because I have two people in my family who are high risk. So before the vaccines, I'm worried about, I'm interviewing people who have killed their relatives. One young man brought it home from work and his mother died. I don't know how I would go on if I did that, right? So I just feel like there's so much stress, and these athletes want to have professional careers, and they're in college or high school. They don't want to get sick, but they want to compete. They want opportunities, and they want to represent their school or, you know, their team. It's very complicated, and if you are stressed out and tired, imagine what it's like to be in this high pressure universe where people get angry because they bought a ticket and you're not playing. You know, where you're their entertainment, where their entertainment or their break from the world is dependent on what you do or don't do. And if you do it and not tell them what you really think about anything, you know, you can't be a real three-dimensional person either. So I think that I agree with you. We've made some strides, but not nearly enough. There are still people who are covering up mental health problems with addiction and with other unhealthy behaviors, and they're often just suffering. And I don't even worry about what kind of athletes are we losing to mental health crises, because we're definitely losing some. I worry about who are the what are their families dealing with? What are their children living with? I was a kid whose dad had PTSD from the Vietnam War. He didn't ever get help for that. And I can tell you, it has an impact on kids. It has an impact on families. So you can worry about, I think their careers are definitely being impacted, but their humanity is impacted. And we really should start worrying it as members of the community. And we've seen some of these turn violent, where there's been homicides and innocent people have been hurt or killed because they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I just think we don't even begin to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to mental health. And if it's not easy and accessible for everybody, then we haven't gotten to the right place.
I've told you before, I mean, everyone knows who my pops is, but my mom is the therapist in the family. I was raised by a therapist, and this won't surprise you because I know you were too. Like, Check-Its dinners were never like, hey, let's just eat and, hang out. Like, there was always like a topic, right? There's always a debate. Let's have a conversation. And last week, I want to bring you into a conversation to hear what you would have to say to the question that I was asked. If Simone Biles was your daughter and you had, throughout the course of her life, watched her work so hard, make the world safe for her the best you could as a parent, probably a lot of expensive camps and really living a very unique, different life that takes a ton of work to get to the point where she is at, the greatest gymnast potentially of all time. And she called you and she said, Mom, I can't do the team event tonight. I can't do it. My head's not right. I don't think I'm in a good headspace to do this. What would your reaction be to that phone call from your daughter?
Well, I can tell you that I'm influenced by the fact that I've had this conversation with one of my kids, and I was the person who said, "You can do it. It's okay. Let's. I'm a fixer. I'm do some yoga, do a little meditation, get yourself in the right headspace, and you'll be okay." I am guilty of exactly the same thing that we all do publicly, right? Like, it's okay. You need to push through. You need to be tough. That's where you find we've all pushed through something we thought we couldn't do, and we've been grateful at the end. And we never have considered, because I don't have mental health problems. I don't have depression. I don't have anxiety. I don't have PTSD from being raped by my doctor. I don't have any of that. So for me, pushing through is pushing through. It's whatever it is. And I just want my kids I don't want them to give up. I want them to be Michaela Skinner. I don't want them to go home early. I don't want them to throw in the towel. I don't want them to miss out on that magical moment. That's what we're all afraid of. So I understand this, push through attitude. But I had that dad, rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine. And I am glad I did, because I would have deprived myself of a lot of things because I wasn't born very tough. But I definitely think we have to give more consideration to the fact that if someone's suffering from depression or they have PTSD from trauma, it is not a normal, just rub some dirt on it, you'll be okay situation. They need professional help. There is nothing you can do. My daughter told me, when you tell me, this is a small problem, we can work it out, and you start telling me things I can do, and I'm still sad when I do those things, it just makes me feel worse about myself. And I didn't ever think of that. And I get accused all the time of being Amy Poehler from Inside Out, happy, like no one's allowed to be sad. We can figure this out. So I am the first to say I was disappointed when Simone Biles pulled out. But then I thought about what she's been through in her life, and I trust her. She is a competitor. She's not going to just dog it. She's not. Donovan Mitchell didn't miss any games because he was like, I don't really want to play these guys. That's not who these people are. So, and I trust them, and we have to start thinking about them as people. And even if we don't trust them when we think they're wimpy, who are you? Who cares? You get to be a wimp if you want in this life.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. It was interesting hearing the responses because, I have some family members that played college athletics, and it was a pretty intense conversation. And look, I was raised to be a competitor. I hated not playing, right? Like anytime I was subbed out, I was bummed. I wanted to play the entire time. So there were some that just, like my sister-in-law, who I adore. She was the Mountain West Conference Freshman of the Year at BYU for basketball. And she said if it was my kid, I would say, look, you've worked too hard, suck it up and do it. And then there are, I really think this next generation, I might sound altruistic or pie in the sky. Like I think my son and this generation coming up, I do think they get it in a way that we just don't. Because
you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
you're
go ahead.
Absolutely right. Because I think we sacrifice. I know when I first started in journalism, I didn't think a thing of working 70 or 80 hours a week. I loved it. I thought I was lucky to be able to do that for my career. And my kids don't see that at all. They think that's a terrible life. They work hard when they're at work, but that their job is not who they are. It's not their life. It is not their identity. And they're much more balanced in their approach to it. But I think the way we are has created some anxiety in our kids.
Absolutely. No, and I
You know?
I told my little sister Elizabeth, who's 26, I said,
Hmm.
look, I think we failed you. You know, whether it's the social media generation, the men and women who look at what a man and a woman is supposed to look like, you know, as far as magazines, TMZ or whatever, and then the body shaming that comes with that because you don't look like these models that are airbrushed in all of their pictures anyway. Like, I really think we have done this service or done this generation a real disservice by some of the pressures that we put upon them. But somehow I think they've traversed through and figured out some things that are a little more healthy when it comes to the mental health stuff. And I feel like there's less judgment among your peers. All of the judgment, all of the horrible takes seem to have come from the folks that are supposed to be the adults in the room, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, and I've said this before, but when you see that most of the media is still white and male, then of course they're going to be more judgmental and harsher. You know, you're going to see some takes that reflect that. When you see women who've been through some of the same things that maybe the athletes have been through, then you'll see a different take. And I don't know. I just don't know what people get out of running someone into the ground. Like, even if you disagree with them, even if you think, well, that's not something I would have done, I don't understand. This is their moment. If they want to go there and not take advantage of it, that's their business. And I will say, look at what has happened. You've seen other American gymnasts have a moment and win a medal and have some attention. And we've looked at the team. We've seen every member of the team shine. And I think it's been a beautiful thing. And so maybe in this crisis that it was really difficult for her, some good came from that. And I wish we would just be just a smidge less judgmental about everything and just take a moment and say, you know, whatever they're going through, like, let's try to understand it instead of saying it's not what I would do, so it must be wrong. Because this idea that if you haven't experienced it or it's not what you know, that it doesn't exist or that it's not right, I don't know when we got to this place. I mean, I have some idea that it came through COVID and through the pandemic, but man, we need to get rid of that.
Hey, before we set you loose, because we like taking our medicine with Amy to help us through the hard things. The CDC over the weekend came out with another mask recommendation, and the numbers continue to spike, not just here but other places too. And the numbers tell us that the majority of folks that are hospitalized are unvaccinated, and some of the heartbreaking stories we hear of folks on their deathbed begging for the vaccine and then being told that it's too late. It just continues to be such a bummer when you hear about these things. And the topic here, of course, continues to be fall football and what that could look like if folks continue to put their feet in the cement with, not being part of the solution. Your thoughts on the CDC guideline and what this could mean for fall football here in the state?
Well, I just want to be clear that the CDC said everyone should mask up. The CDC has always said only vaccinated people should be unmasked, especially indoors. Now, when vaccinated people stopped wearing masks and businesses stopped requiring them, most of your mandates went away, unvaccinated people also stopped wearing masks. And so that's why you're seeing and then we had the Delta variant, which is much more contagious. And like somebody pointed out, they've learned more about the variant, and that's why we're getting additional information. And one of the things we've learned is that even vaccinated people can spread the Delta variant. So I'm wearing a mask now, and I'm wearing a mask as a vaccinated person to protect unvaccinated people. I don't know I'm sure I know unvaccinated people, but most of my friends and family are very open about the fact that they've gotten the vaccine because we have some high-risk people in our family, so everyone wants to protect everyone else. So most of us have had the vaccine, but I wear a mask now, and I wear it whenever I'm indoors. And I wore it to Lagoon yesterday when I was standing in line. And I want people to know, as a vaccinated person, I'm doing that to protect unvaccinated people who so far have shown no regard for other people. They're worried about themselves, and they're getting their information from I don't know where. But if they looked at really what's in the vaccine, and they looked at and they listened to actual medical professionals, they would either get the vaccine, or if they can't get the vaccine, they would know they need to wear a mask and try to keep their distance. It's not that hard. It's not a very big deal. But you're not going to see the deaths that you saw pre-vaccination because there's so many people who are vaccinated. In Utah, I think it's only like 45 or 46% of adults are fully vaccinated, but that's enough to keep the fatalities lower, so that, lower than they were before, at this time last year. But you're going to see unvaccinated people still get really, really sick, and Delta's worse. People have much more viral load, so they get sicker. They get sicker faster. And my real concern, in addition to the fact that more people are going to lose family members that they don't need to lose, is that we are putting our medical professionals through such trauma. And whether you understand it or not, when people are used to, in a career, maybe losing a dozen people in a career of respiratory therapy or working in an ICU, they're losing 19 or 20 people. Last year, one doctor said he lost 19 people in a day. That's not something that normal human beings who love and care about their patients can sustain. And so when you're thinking about this, if you have any doubt about it at all, please get educated. Please, someone will answer your questions. But I'm afraid we're not going to have any good doctors left. There are already many that have left the profession, just like there are teachers who are leaving the profession, and restaurant workers, because it's not worth the abuse or the neglect or whatever the negative there is. But I was worried before all of this about our healthcare professionals and the trauma that they endured last year, and now that this is occurring, and I've talked to a couple of friends who are in nursing, I don't know. We're breaking people. We're destroying them, just as if we sent them into a war zone. And I don't know how we come back from that. And think about someone else besides yourself. It's not that big a deal to wear a mask if you don't want to get vaccinated, but the only person you're saving with the vaccine is you.
Last thing before we set you loose, and we need to be a little bit tight. This is my bad for ignoring the clock.
All right,
Porter's looking at me going, it was so much better when you were gone last week. For the folks for the Tucker Carlson fans who also get political news from their CrossFit Trainers Facebook page, you explained this on the podcast. Why is it not a HIPAA violation for me to ask you if you've been vaccinated?
Because you're not a medical professional. HIPAA applies to people who work in the medical field. So they are not allowed. It protects you as a patient from having a nurse share your information with someone else. So that's why I can't call and get my husband's test results unless he gives permission for me to get that information from his doctor. So HIPAA it applies to medical professionals, and it's a law that doesn't allow them to release any information about patients without their written approval. So I can't violate HIPAA because it doesn't apply to me. So if I ask you if you're vaccinated, HIPAA has nothing to do with our exchange. And now it's a big joke, and it's going to continue to be a joke, but it doesn't, you have no right, your right to privacy is the same as if it was any other information. So it's not, you don't have to tell people if you're vaccinated, but I know lots of employers now that are saying we're going to require it, and our employees are going to have to prove it. And that is, Utah is an at-will work state. You don't have the right to say no. You'll go get another job, but they can require you, just like my bosses can require, like we have it in our thing that if you bring bags to work, they get to search them if they need to. I mean, employers get to do what they want on their property, and unless you have it explicitly written in the contract that you don't have to tell stuff, they require it, you'll have to do it. Now, listen, if you're in the military, like my dad said, you get shots, you don't even know what they're shooting in you. Like they're just giving you shots right and left. Most of us, my age, or most adults, had to be vaccinated to go to school. We all got a bunch of vaccines before we were old enough to think about it, right? So it's not anything new. It's not anything different. Everyone's worried that this is it's approved under an emergency thing. All that did was mean that they opened up the money and the regulations. Every step that they've been through is exactly the same as every other vaccine. It's just condensed because there's money, and everyone in the world is working on the vaccine. So I beg you to seek out a conversation with a medical professional. Don't get information off Facebook or YouTube. It's not accurate. And Tucker Carlson is vaccinated. Donald Trump is vaccinated. Sean Hannity is vaccinated. So when they tell you, anything bad about the vaccine, consider that they themselves are vaccinated and ask yourself what that means.
Whether your kids are taking notes or passing them, reading textbooks or sending texts, there will still be lots to see this school year. And that's why Pearl Vision wants to help you ensure they see it all. So they're covering the out-of-pocket cost or your insurance copay for your eye exam. Schedule your family's eye exams at pearlvision.com. Valid prescription required. Valid at participating locations. Restrictions apply. Taxes extra. See store for details. Ends 10/31/2021. Exams available at the independent doctors of optometry at or next to Pearl Vision. Some doctors employed by Pearl Vision.
Have you been to Express lately? People can't get enough of their clothes. They're like instant confidence boosters. The jeans come in a temp control fabric that keeps you comfortable no matter the weather. And the t-shirts, hands down, they'll feel like they're made of the softest fabric you've ever worn. And get this, the suits have stretch and look sharp. Like, what? How do they do that? Everyone's raving about the newest looks from Express. Just check out the 5-star reviews. See for yourself and shop the latest at express.com and in stores.